I received a lot of enthusiastic responses to my recipe for the Moldavian braised vegetable sauce and eggplant recipes because even though they're entirely vegetarian, they're rich and satisfying and unlike anything you would have tasted in other parts of the world. This dish is based on nearby Romanian cuisine. Normally, the wild mustard flowers that grow everywhere would be cooked with the cabbage. Here I've substituted mustard seeds to make it more accessible, and although the result isn't quite the same, it is delicious and unique.
After you've peeled the outer leaves of the cabbage off and washed it, what you want to do is you want to remove this core. And you can just make a conical incision like this around it. Obviously make sure you keep your hands away from the front of the knife so in case you slip, you cut out a finger. Okay. And this part we're just going to get rid of. Now the rest of this cabbage, we can slice it up like this, or we can stick it in a food processor, whatever. It's going to break up a lot during the cooking process anyway. I'm just going to go ahead and shred this manually because it's pretty easy to do. I have about 500 grams of cabbage here. Into this I'm going to add a few sage leaves. These are well past their prime. They're not really good for other things. You can use, of course, you can use ones that are in good condition. If you have old sage, though, here's a perfect opportunity to use some of it up. I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of mustard seeds. That's a lot of mustard seed, I know.
You add 2 teaspoons of salt, no more, and finally the oil. I'm using mustard oil in this case, which works really well and helps simulate the mustard herb you can't get. You can use regular oil, it'll still be okay.
And then we just kind of mix this up like a salad. Then I've transferred it to the braising dish, the lid on it, and we begin to braise. And after 2.5 hours, 170 Celsius, this is what we have. Let's give it a stir around, and then we're going to pass this through a sieve, collect the solids. We're going to let the juices, discard the juices. So, what we want to do is we want to express as much of the liquid out of this as possible. And the solids are what we're going to save, and that's what we're going to be using in the next stage of this cooking. So you do a really good job, squeeze out as much of the liquid as you possibly can. And this is what you should be left with, this concentrated form. It doesn't really taste like cabbage, it doesn't taste like mustard, it's its own thing. And this will form the basis for the dish, and you should, if you weigh this, should have somewhere around approximately 230, 240 grams. So I have the braised cabbage. I actually made this several days ago. It keeps quite well. This is the Campanelle that I'm going to be using. I have the seasoning mix that I talked about in the front part of this video. If you read the annotations at the very front, as I explained to you, you can use something else. Sour cream for the end. I'm going to actually do this in olive oil. If you want it to be a little bit zingier, you can use mustard oil once again. I've got some parsley I'm going to chop up, and the passata, and the pasta water is ready boiling now. I'm going to add the pasta to the water, and then we're going to begin cooking the sauce. I have a very large 28 centimeter skillet, and I'm going to, it's been heated, it's about 200 Fahrenheit right now. Not super hot. I'm adding a little olive oil. Like I said, you could use mustard oil at this point if you wanted as well. And this is different from when you're making the like the Italian tomato sauce, where you want it to be just sizzling hot right away. It's a different approach. We're going to cook this in the oil, along with, what is it, 1.5 tablespoons of chopped parsley. We're going to cook this at good heat. You know, it's on a 7 out of 1 to 10, but we're not really caramelizing it here. We're just reducing it. After a couple minutes, it starts to boil. And this is what you want to see. We're just going to reduce this tomato sauce with the parsley in it. It's not tomato sauce really, it's just passata, it's just pureed tomatoes. In restaurant kitchens we call it tomato sauce. After 4 or 5 minutes, depending on how hot your stove is, you'll see it starts to tighten up some. This is much thicker than it was when we started out. Now I'm going to add that seasoning mix to it. We're going to cook the seasoning mix in the tomatoes. Just another minute or so here. Just get it cooked at a higher temperature in the tomato sauce, because as soon as we add that braised cabbage that's been in the refrigerator, the temperature is going to come way down. We want to cook the seasoning at a higher temperature, so let's give it like 30 seconds more here. Okay, now I'm going to add the cabbage. I'll begin mixing this around, sauteing it. It's the same heat the whole time. It's been on 7 out of 1 to 10. This is the cabbage is already really well cooked, but it needs to be really well integrated now with that tomatoes and parsley and the seasoning. So I'm going to let this cook for at least 3 or 4 minutes. And during this time, while this is cooking, the Campanelle has finished. It's nice and tender. And after a few more minutes, you start getting this lovely aroma. It's very hard to explain, but that's what you want to wait for. Wait till you smell this really nice smell off of this, and it's quite thick. So now I'm going to do is take a ladle of the pasta water. That's why you kept the pasta water, and maybe a little bit more than a ladle, maybe like 1.5 ladles. Thin this out. And now we're going to finish cooking the pasta. It's al dente. We're going to cook it with this. And I'm going to add the creme fraiche, or smetana in this case. You can use sour cream if you want. Creme fraiche is really a lot nicer in this. Good. Here we go. Little big dollops. Big tablespoons, and it's almost done. Just integrate it, mix it all together. Basically all you have to do, because it's going to keep cooking from the residual heat, and the pasta was almost finished as it was. So this is basically it. Just stir it around and then plate it up. And then as the final touch, you want to take some sage, preferably sage that you dried yourself, as I explained in the second volume of my cookbook why you would do that, and rather than buy the stuff in the bottle. There's good reason to do that. And just crumble a little bit over the top.
If you want to know more about my adventures as a chef around the world and have some great laughs along the way, be sure to check out the video tour of my book, 40 Years in One Night. It's up on YouTube right now. Click the link. If you like my videos, look for my cookbook, now available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and other internet bookseller sites. Also look for my cocktail book, Cocktails of the South Pacific and Beyond, Advanced Mixology, available through Amazon online.